Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hello children, I welcome you all to our online teaching academy Ekalaiva. Today for your English class we are going to begin a new prose lesson. The name of the lesson is The Stalled Ox. The Stalled Ox. The author is Saki. Let's just understand the meaning of our heading. Stalled means to stop or to prevent. Prevent somebody or something from moving further. An ox is an animal. You know, a bull, isn't it? That is called an ox. Before we begin, let's get to know about the author. Hector Hugh Munro, the Scotsman who wrote under the pen name of Saki. Our author's original name is Hector Hugh Munro, and he wrote under the pen name of Saki. And he was a talented writer of wit and wisdom. He was a very talented writer, and all his works had a lot of humor and wisdom as well. He is best remembered as a master of short stories. So, he is considered as a master of short stories. Most of his stories are delightfully light-hearted and makes fun of human beings and their peculiarities. Most of his stories are very humorous and it makes fun of the human beings and their peculiar nature. Peculiar means it's very different, unique. Peculiar means very unique or very different. Each human being is different, isn't it? So he tries to just make fun in a very light-hearted way about the peculiarities in each individual. There is an element of satire in all his stories, including The Stalled Ox. There is an element of satire. You should understand the meaning of satire. Satire means it's a humorous way of criticizing. It is a style of writing also. It is a humorous way of criticizing somebody or something. That is called satire. And even in The Stalled Ox, satire plays a very important role. Let's read and find out how. Before we begin, let me introduce you to the important characters of this story. The first important character is Theophil Eshley. He is an artist by profession. Theophil Eshley. He is an artist by profession. The next important character is Adela Pingsford. Adela Pingsford is Eshley's neighbor. She is his neighbor. Theophil Eshley is an artist and Adela Pingsford is his neighbor. And the ox. Ox, I told you, ox is the animal, the bull. It is the main character of this story. And around the ox, this whole story is going to revolve. Let's see how. The most important character around which the story revolves is the ox. Now, I told you this is going to be a very humorous story. Let's read ahead to enjoy it. You may have seen an ox in a field, but have you seen one inside a house? What do you think happens when an ox enters the sitting room and eats up the flowers in the vases. Now, this is a brief outline of our story. You may have seen an ox in a field. You may have seen an ox grazing in a field. But have you seen one inside a house? What do you think happens when an ox enters the sitting room and eats up the flowers in the vases? Here we get the brief outline of our story. An ox unexpectedly enters the living room of a house and eats up the flowers in the vases. How did the ox get in, and how are they going to drive away the ox? Let's see. Now we are going to begin our story. Theophil Eshley was an artist by profession. He was very good at his work and could paint any subject he could think of, but circumstances had forced him to specialize in pictures of cows. Now we get to know about Theophil Eshley. Theophil Eshley was an artist by profession, and he was very good. He was very talented in his work. He could paint any topic, but circumstances means it is his situation. Circumstances had forced him to specialize in pictures of cows. Because of circumstance, he was forced only to paint pictures of cows. What was the circumstance? Why did he have to paint only pictures of cows? Let's read ahead. On one side of his garden, there was a small field in which a neighbor kept some small cows. On one side of his garden, there was a small field, and his neighbor had a few cows. At noon in summertime, the cows stood deep in tall grass under the shade of a group of trees. During summertime, the cows used to come and stand in the grass over there, and it will be grazing there. It stood under the shade of a tree, with spots of sunlight falling on their brown backs. When the cows stood under the tree, spots of sunlight used to just fall on the cows through the trees. Eshley had once painted a beautiful picture of two peaceful looking cows under a green tree with the grass and sunlight all around them. So what Eshley did, he liked this view of cows standing under a tree and the sunlight falling on it. It was very beautiful. So what he did, once he painted a beautiful picture of two cows standing under a tree and with the grass and sunlight on them. The Royal Academy had chosen it for its summer exhibition. He had submitted it to the Royal Academy, and they also liked the painting and they chose it to present it in the summer exhibition. Now, what is the Royal Academy? The Royal Academy. The Royal Academy is an official organization in Britain that aims to develop arts. This is the Royal Academy, is an official organization in Britain, and it encourages the artists and the painters. All the painters used to become a member of the academy and they used to submit their work there. They used to present their work there, and the best used to be presented in the exhibition. So, the Royal Academy liked the picture of cows which Eshley had painted, and they had chosen it to be exhibited in the summer exhibition. The Royal Academy, the most respected authority of its kind in the country, likes its artists to be orderly. So, the Royal Academy wanted all its artists to be orderly. Why? What is meant by orderly here? Let's understand. They wanted them to be orderly. That means if they are good at painting one sort of picture, then that is the kind of picture they should stick to. If they are good at painting one sort of picture, then they have to only paint those kind of pictures. If they paint a kind of a picture and it is widely accepted, then they have to specialize only on those pictures. Since Eshley's picture of cows was a very big hit, it was accepted widely, Eshley was forced only to specialize on the pictures of cows. Eshley's two attempts to paint something different were terrible failures. In spite of this, Eshley tried to do something different, but it was a big failure. The Royal Academy didn't accept it at all. They were not approved by the Academy and returned. Since the Royal Academy wanted Eshley to specialize only in pictures of cows, they didn't approve the other pictures what he tried to paint. Eshley then produced a shaded corner where sleepy cows stand dreaming. Then Eshley produced what was expected out of him. He painted the picture of a cow again. A shaded corner where sleepy cows stand dreaming. That was the title of his painting, and was back in favor once more. Back in favor means the Royal Academy accepted it and began to support Eshley again, because he again specialized in the picture what they expected him to do. Adela Pingsford's problem. Adela Pingsford's problem. Now I had introduced you to Adela Pingsford. She is the neighbor of Mr. Eshley, isn't it? She has a problem. Let's see what is the problem. On a fine afternoon in late autumn, Eshley was finishing off a picture of grass when his neighbor Adela Pingsford began knocking very loudly on his door. So it was a fine autumn. Autumn, you know, is a season, one of the 4 seasons, where during autumn all the leaves from the trees will fall, isn't it? So Adela Pingsford, Eshley's neighbor, was just banging at the door, his door. She was knocking very loudly. Very loudly means she was just banging at his door. "There's an ox in my garden," she announced, explaining her noisy entrance. So when Eshley opened the door, she just rushed in and said, "There's an ox in my garden." "An ox," said Eshley rather foolishly. Eshley was confused. He didn't know how to react or what to reply to her. He asked, "An ox?" He could not imagine why Adela should want to tell him such a thing. He was wondering why she has to come and tell him about it. What can he do about it? What kind of ox? And he is asking a question to her. What kind of ox is it? He didn't know how to react, or he didn't know what to talk to Adela because he was confused. And he's just asking a foolish question. What kind of ox? "Oh, I don't know what kind," answered the lady angrily. Now Adela was very irritated. She is already having an ox in her garden, and this person Eshley is not trying to help her. He is just asking her some foolish question. So she is getting angry. "Oh, I don't know what kind," answered the lady angrily. "Just an ordinary ox. What I don't like about it is that it is in my garden." She is saying, "It's just an ordinary ox. I have no idea what ox it is. But what I don't like it because it is in my garden. I have spent 2 weeks in that garden getting it neat and tidy for the winter." She said, "I have spent almost 2 weeks in my garden tidying it up for winter. I have worked hard for 2 weeks in my garden making it ready for winter, and I don't like that ox in my garden. An ox walking about it won't help things, and an ox walking about my garden is going to spoil everything. Besides, it's treading on flowers." Treading on means crushing or pressing something while walking. It's just treading on means it's crushing all the flowers when it is walking. So Adela is explaining to Eshley, I have spent 2 weeks preparing my garden for winter. I have worked on it. But now this ox has entered the garden and it will ruin my garden. And I don't like it. How did it get into the garden? Asked Eshley. Now Eshley is again asking her a question. How did the ox come into your garden? I think it came in by the gate, Adela said. Adela is replying, I think it must have walked in by the gate. Maybe the gate was left open and it just walked in, said the lady impatiently. She was getting more impatient with Eshley. He was irritating her by asking her irrelevant questions. It couldn't have climbed over the walls, and I don't think anyone dropped it from an aeroplane. She is trying to make fun of Eshley. She is saying, I am sure it couldn't have climbed over the walls and come, and nobody can drop an ox into my garden by an aeroplane. The important question is not how it got in, but how to get it out. So she is saying, now the relevant question is not how it entered my garden, but how to get it out of the garden. Won't it go by itself? Asked Eshley. Eshley is asking, won't it leave by itself? If it wanted to go by itself, said Adela Pingsford, rather angrily, I should not have come here to talk to you about it. I am nearly all alone. She is saying, if the ox will go by itself, I will not approach you for help. And she is getting even more angry. I am nearly all alone. She is saying, I don't have anybody to help me. I am alone. The servant is having her afternoon off and the cook is in bed with a headache. Her servant has taken the afternoon off and her cook is having a headache. So, nobody is there at home to help her to drive away the ox. So, now she is approaching Eshley to help her to drive the ox away. But instead of trying to help her, Eshley is asking her all foolish questions. At school, they may have taught us how to remove a large ox from a small garden. So, Adela is continuing to make fun of Eshley's behavior. She is saying, maybe during school, they would have taught us how to remove an ox from a garden. I suppose, but if they did, I cannot remember what they said. I suppose they have taught us how to remove an ox from a garden. But even if they did, I cannot remember what was taught in school that time. All I could think was that you were a near neighbor and a person who paints cows. I could just think of you because you are my neighbor. You are just staying right next to me and you are a person who paints cows. I thought you must be familiar with the subjects that you painted and that you might be of some help. Possibly I was wrong. And since Eshley is specializing on painting cows, Adela thought that she can help her to drive the ox away. So she is saying, I thought you must be familiar with your subject. I thought you will be familiar with the cows and ox and animals because you are specializing only on painting that. And I thought that you will help me. But maybe I was wrong. I paint dairy cows, certainly, admitted Eshley. I paint dairy cows. Dairy cows means farm cows. Eshley admitted. But I do not have any experience in dealing with wandering oxen. And he is saying, yes, I agree that I paint cows, but I don't have any experience in dealing with an ox. I have seen how cowboys do it in movies, of course, but they always have horses and a lot of other equipment. Now, I have seen cowboys chasing ox only in movies, but they do it with the help of horses and other equipment. They are not doing alone, and I don't know anything about chasing ox. He is replying. Adela Pingsford said nothing. She led the way to her garden, and Adela Pingsford didn't say anything, and she led Eshley to her garden. It normally seemed a fair-sized garden. A fair-sized garden means it was quite a big garden. But it looked very small with the ox standing in it. The ox was a huge animal, but the garden looked very small with the ox standing in it, and it was a very huge ox. It was looking very big. It was dull red about the head and shoulders, dirty white on the back legs, and it had large red eyes. Now Eshley is describing the ox. It was a huge animal, it was dull red, and it had dirty white on its back, and its eyes were big and red. It was quite scary for Eshley to look at the ox. Eshley stood very near the gate while he studied the animal's appearance and behavior. So Eshley didn't do anything, because when he saw the huge animal, Eshley also was scared. So he just stood near the gate and he observed how the animal is behaving and its appearance. Adela Pingsford continued to say nothing. Adela also stood near him. She didn't say anything. "It's eating a flower," said Eshley at last. And Eshley at last is telling Adela, "It's eating a flower." "How clever you are," said Adela. Now Adela is getting very impatient with Eshley's behavior, and she is saying, "How clever you are. You seem to notice everything. You seem to notice everything. You seem to observe everything correctly. As a matter of fact, it has got 6 flowers in its mouth at the present moment." And Adela is saying, if you observe, it is having 6 flowers in its mouth at the moment. Now we have come to an end to the first part. In this part, we read that Adela Pingsford has an ox in her garden, and she doesn't know how to drive it away. She is approaching her neighbor Eshley, who is a painter and specializes in painting of cows, to chase it away. Though Eshley comes to her home, he is also not able to help her. What are they going to do, and how are they going to drive away the ox? We will see the remaining in the next part. Thank you. To receive our online lessons, please press the subscribe button and you will receive the latest updates. Thank you very much.